Hey folks, this is Lawrence, and I'm grateful to be with you today. Uh, I was sharing a story with a friend just now, and I wanted to tell you about it too. I wanted to share it with others openly. Not a lot of people who, even people who know me, know about this story, and like all of my stories, it sort of has a punch at the end. It's got some sort of metaphor at the end that possibly we could all benefit from. So I thought we would share it. I would share it. And what prompted this was a video that I recently saw also on YouTube that I'll put the link below. And what happened was this girl had a near-death experience. She was climbing in the Palisades in New Jersey, which is very close to Manhattan. There are some cliffs there along the Hudson on the New Jersey side, and there's also some trails. And for whatever reason, she found herself on that cliff, hanging on for her dear life until a point where she couldn't hang on anymore and she just had to let go. So I'll let you watch that video and you can learn more about her story. But I'll tell you about my story, which is actually quite similar. I was living in the Bay Area of San Francisco, and every once in a while I would, when I was stressed out or whatever, of course, you want to go to the sea. On this occasion, I went to Land's End, which is a sort of a bluff or cliff that has a trail that goes down into the water. And I didn't go where most people were the public were, or the tourists were. I kind of went on a more secluded path, um, which was deeper into the woods, into the forest, over the cliff, and then eventually I found myself on this trail that led down to a nice, beautiful cove. A cove that was, sand up against rocks and the water crashing in. And if you have ever been in the Pacific, you know it's cold. Not everybody's going in the water, but of course I had to go in, and I felt such a joyful exuberance. I forgot who I was. I was completely alone with nature and enjoying myself just splashing in the water. Now, prior to this, I had felt my body was just like weak. I was tired, I was exhausted. I had done a lot of exercise, or I might have taught some classes where I just kind of give my all. And on this occasion, this was my day to relax and rest. But when I got in that water, finally, it takes a while because get used to it. I got in that water, I was splashing around, and I felt so exuberant, excited, and new energy. It was like a burst of new energy. So as I was drying out, I was already thinking about, okay, now, how am I going to go back? And one thing about me, for whatever reason, I don't like to go back the way I came. I like to go back a different way all the time. So it doesn't have to be much different, but it has to be a little different. So I looked up at the rocks and I said, you know what? I'm not going to take this windy path, back up the way I came, because I know it. I've been here before a million times and I want to go a different way. So I looked at the rocks, the jagged rocks, and I said, I'm going to go right up those rocks right there. And that's exactly what I did. I started climbing, and it wasn't beyond my ability. It was, but again, the judgment there wasn't accurate because I was feeling so, I don't know, this burst of energy. So I just kind of got up there, started climbing, and I was doing very well, not a problem. But I got to a certain point on those rocks where I just couldn't find another stronghold. I couldn't find, you know, and it was the first time in my life where I had actually gone climbing and experienced a situation where you can go up, but you can't go back. Because a lot of these little footholds required me to push my weight from here to here, okay, push into that rock at the same time as I pull myself up. So I'm finding these little, outcrops in the rocks, placing my feet up, 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 until there's nowhere to grab. There's nothing else to grab. And at that moment, I realized, I need to go back down. I can't go up any further. But the next thing I realized after that was that there was no way down. There's no way that I could step down without slipping, without letting go. It's like I had to let go to slip down, to go down. And there really, once I let go with my arms, there, my foot's not going to be holding on to anything. And so I just hung there. There was no way down and there was no way up. And I was just getting weaker and I was getting weaker and I was getting weaker. And I realized at that moment that I'm going to die. I had to face that. I had to face that. I had to face in that moment that I'm going to die and I'm going to die alone. And nobody's even going to know about it. There's nobody here. If I fall, I'm going to hit those jagged rocks below me. And there's just no way I'm going to survive that. It was very difficult for me. And I had to confront that fear. And I had to say to myself, I actually, then I started to pray. I started to pray to God. I said, Dear God, please don't let me die here. Please help me. And I was getting weaker and I was looking down. I said my prayer and then something told me, how did I get out of it? Everybody wants to know, so how'd you get out of it? What happened? Come back next week. No. So what happened was I somehow found a way to conserve energy by leaning on the rocks. So my first instinct was, okay, I'm holding myself way out here. I'm going to place my body flat on the rocks to see if I can, rest. So, my torso, my pelvic bone, my chest, as much as I could, I was holding on, but it was less effort by pulling myself in. And as I was pulling myself in, closer to the rocks, by some miracle, I could stretch a little further sideways. And I noticed miraculously that there was something that I could grab onto. Something. And by having that, it kind of freed up my body. I contorted my body in such a way that I could make another grasp. And somehow, even though I was weak, I managed to crawl up that is basically vertical. There was no like crawling this way. It was like crawl along the rocks and climb up. And interestingly, I didn't realize it at the time, but it wasn't that far to the top. I had almost gone to the top. Maybe it was 5 feet. It was 5 feet to the top where I got stuck. Maybe the top was like, a little bit, but it seemed like there was no way out. All of a sudden, I found a way out, and I crawled with every last strength I had. I crawled to the top. I flopped onto that grass at the top, and I was like kissing the ground, and I was saying thank you, and that was the closest to death I had ever come, and I really feel like I was saved. And at that time, I was taught how to talk to my angels, how to speak to God, whatever you want to call it, just to talk to and get an answer. And so after I composed myself, maybe after 5 or 10 minutes, of surviving, you know, I turned to heaven and I said, "Dear God, dear heaven, why did that happen? What is the significance and what is the meaning behind this?" Because I always believe everything has a meaning. And the answer came very clearly. I said, "You can only go forward, you can't go back. There is no turning back. There's no way back. You can only move forward." And what that meant for me might be different than what it might mean for you. What I interpret it as was, I'm on a path. I have, I'm aware of certain things about me, about life, about how things work, and I can't ignore it. I need to move forward on my path, which means to serve. I need to serve others. I need to help others because that is my path. And maybe that's similar to yours. You know, I was doing all sorts of things to, indulge in the physical world, to have fun, to enjoy our physical reality, but I wasn't doing much to offer service and help others. Not as much as I could. I was ignoring it. I wanted to ignore that this was who I am and this was my path. So that's what it meant for me. But I hope you don't need to go through such drastic means to find your path. And I hope you like this story. I wanted to share it with the world a little bit because I think it really woke me up, and hopefully it can wake you up too. If you like the story, if you have any comments and you can relate, or if you feel compassion, whatever you want to say, I appreciate your comments below. And I do have a lot of stories that a lot of people don't know about, and I've written about them. And I plan to do more videos, so please like, subscribe, let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.